You are now listening to
Chakras and Shotguns.
Welcome to Chakras and Shotguns, the podcast that guides you on a journey of spiritual development and personal preparedness. I'm Mick, a marketer, sound healer, and prepper.
And I'm Jen, a former lawyer, yogi, and human design lover. If you follow or know anyone in astrology, they're probably talking about how Venus is currently in retrograde. But what does that even mean? And how does it impact us? In today's episode, we're digging into the significance of the planet and the implications of when it goes reverse.
But before we get into that, we want to make sure that you're receiving our newsletter. We have tons of great tips and announcements about events that we have upcoming. So make sure to sign up using the link in the show description so that you're up to date on all things Chakras and Shotguns.
All right, let's start the episode as we always do with a little breathwork meditation to get us into a mindful space.
All right. So today I want us to focus in on our heart space. We spend the majority of our waking lives operating from our head. Many of us do a lot of overthinking and just a lot of overexertion of mental energy. And so for the next few moments, I want us just to get to a heart-centered space and away from the distractions of our constant mental chatter. So let's take a moment, take a couple of deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. One more, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Now I want you to sink into your chair, or if you're laying down, into the couch or bed, and just allow yourself to be supported by whatever it is you're sitting or laying on. Now I want you to imagine white light surrounding you. Think of it as a nice cocoon of light just holding you. And let's just stay in this space for a couple of moments. Now bring your awareness to your heart. You can place one or both of your hands in the center of your chest. And take a few breaths here with your awareness squarely focused on your heart. Take note of any emotions that come up. Maybe you see a color in your mind's eye. Just hold space for that right now. Are there any emotions that maybe you're suppressing? Any feelings that lay below the surface that need space to come up? In our constant busyness, a lot of times we push things down just so we can make it through the day. But that only delays what eventually will come up. Stay here for a couple of more breaths. And just allow yourself to feel those emotions. Let's take a couple more deep breaths in through the nose. And out through the mouth. One more. In through the nose. And out through the mouth. Bring yourself back into the room. Wiggle your toes. Wiggle your fingers. And if you need to, take a moment, pause the episode, and journal any emotions that came up during this exercise. And with that, we'll get back into the show.
Thanks, Mick. I'm fighting a little something, so I'm raspy on the track today. So Mick took the breath work for this episode.
I was overdue. I feel like it's been a while,
Yeah. So with that being said, my energy is not low, but I have to keep my voice in Anita Baker land, sounding like I just woke up. All right.
Let's get into the main topic. We're about 1/3 of the way through Venus being in retrograde, which happens every 18 months and lasts for 40 days. 40 days and 40 nights. This time around, Venus retrograde kicked off on July 22nd and will end on September 3rd. But what does that mean? And why should you care? Like it's hot girl summer, July 22nd to September 3rd.
Yeah. Well,
peak summertime.
Being a hot girl might be a factor in that. So yeah, in astrology, different planets rule over different areas of life. And Venus rules over our sentiments, what we value, and the pleasure that we take in life. It's very hot girly. In Roman mythology, Venus was the goddess of love, sex, beauty, and fertility. So what you get is Venus basically rules over love and money. And isn't that basically what every person wants to know about when they're getting a reading or they're reading their astrology or even booking a tarot reading with me? Shameless plug.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Jen for holding it down on the tarot cards.
They'd be like, where the money reside and where's my boo?
So let's take a moment real quick, though, and refresh on what retrograde means. So retrograde motion means that when looking at the sky, there appears to be a change in the movement of one or more planets through the sky. The planets don't physically start moving backward in their orbit. They just appear to do so because of the relative positions and speeds of Earth versus the other planets.
So is this kind of like when you're in a car and your car's not moving, but the car next to you starts moving and it feels like you're going backwards?
That's exactly what happens.
Look at me. I basically have a physics PhD now.
Love it.
So we got Venus, love and money. We moving backwards, or at least it appears to be Venus is. You put it all together. What do you get? When a planet goes into retrograde, it can feel like the areas that the planet rules over go backwards. So, with Venus being in retrograde, some are calling this breakup season. So, hot girl summer, I guess. People's money might be feeling a little bit funny. In celebrities, like around this time, we've seen a bit of this. You got Mama Tina and Richard Lawson breaking up.
Oh, they broke up?
Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, they filed for divorce.
Dang. Mama Tina fine, too, for an old lady.
Okay. Whatever's going on with Ariana Grande, she's like getting a divorce and stole somebody else's man who just had a baby with his wife. So that's a whole mess. And then Lizzo has this big lawsuit that just got filed against her. So like her money could be getting a little funny at a minimum with just attorney fees.
And what about your boy, the dude who was Al Seed in, what's that show?
True Blood.
Yes.
That's a black king right there. Joe Manganiello.
Yeah, him and his boo broke up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was a couple more too, but I can't think of them right now. But I just remember that one because all the girls was on the Twitters,
Yeah,
on X,
mm-hmm.
talking about it.
On X, oh God. And in the way back, during another Venus retrograde, this was like a big pop culture moment when it came out that
Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Why did I say Brad like that?
I don't know, man.
Brad. When it came out that Brad and Angelina Jolie were messing around with each other while he was still married to Jennifer Aniston, it was during Venus retrograde.
Mm-hmm. All right. But getting into this retrograde, Venus is currently in retrograde in Leo. And that's a sign of confidence, passion, and the desire for attention and recognition. So your experience during this time could include reassessing romantic relationships. It's a time to consider what you truly value in a partner and to express your desires and needs more openly. You might be feeling like expressing self-love and self-expression. Leo is all about self-love and authenticity. This retrograde could encourage you to explore your creative side and express yourself more boldly. It is an opportunity to reconnect with maybe some activities or hobbies that bring you joy. And then you might see some past relationships popping back up during this time. So like any retrograde, this period may bring people or situations from the past back into your life. So be open to revisiting past connections, but also you want to make sure, you know, if you had that toxic ex, you want to just have some discernment in deciding whether or not to rekindle old flames.
I don't know why, but that made me think of, I know that ain't who I think it is. So some other things that you might experience during this time, Leo energy seeks validation and recognition. But during this time, it's essential to kind of find that healthy balance between seeking external validation versus cultivating your own self-confidence and self-worth from within. So just be thinking about that. Old creative projects. If you have any unfinished creative projects or ideas, this might be a good time to revisit those and find new inspiration. And reflecting on your self-identity. So using this period to explore who you are at your core, your passions, your desires, the things that you value, and embrace the opportunity to grow and evolve in alignment with your true authentic self. Mick, have you felt any of these things kind of bubble up in the past? I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know if it actually falls into any of these buckets, the first thing I want to mention. But like generally, you know, me and Jen, we have been pretty in sync, pretty like everything's been pretty copacetic, as they say. But like we was beefing.
Were we?
Like 2-3 weeks ago. It was like technically the shadow period of Venus retrograde.
Which we'll get into.
Yeah, it was July 20th. I wrote it down on the calendar because it was like everything that was going on that day. I feel like me and you were just like bumping heads. And
that was the day we tried to record. Yeah,
we was beefing, and I was like, "Dang, what is going on? There's got to be something in the," because it just didn't make sense. It felt like it just kind of came out of nowhere, you know. And I feel like that was like, it makes sense that it would have been during the shadow period. That was like the first introduction of this energy coming in, and I feel like we were trying to adjust to it, and like it was just,
yeah, we were bumping heads.
It was some beef in the air. You feel me? So,
and we don't even eat red meat.
Exactly. The other thing I'll point out is I had recently, last weekend actually, I attended a reunion with my line brothers. So it's been 20 years since we pledged together. And yeah, it was just dope to like kind of reconnect and kind of reestablish that relationship. So I feel like that was kind of perfect in the Venus retrograde energy for us. Kind of like throwback to way back when.
Those are like the only old relationships you want to like see again. So while Mick was at his reunion, having fun, going to Top Golf, I had the very brilliant idea, brilliant in quotation marks, to take the girls by myself back to Dallas for my family reunion on my mom's side. And the trip was interesting. Of course, there were like past relationships, right? There's family I haven't seen in a very long time. There's some family I hadn't seen since before COVID. So that was really great to see those people. But I remember calling Mick and being like, I feel like I have to start over in a sense of like reassessing who I am as a person. And he was like, what? What are you talking about?
I literally did is it Squidward? Mr. Crab? Whatever that meme where it's like swirling around like.
I know. And I was like, why do I feel like that? But I think like moving to California and doing this whole like reassessment of myself top to bottom and who I am authentically and how I express myself has been very freeing. Going back home to the South was kind of like, okay, but you got to stand 10 toes down in it. And presenting myself as no longer a lawyer, which was like a thing. Like, you know, we went around to talk about who's an entrepreneur in the family. And my mom was like, you're a lawyer. And I was like, I'm not a lawyer anymore. I'm inactive. And like this like push pull of like, you're still an attorney. And I'm like, that's not really my life anymore. So it was really interesting, like that I found myself in this space of like, what do I want? What do I value? Who am I? How do I show up? How do I express myself? And where do I get value out of that? And realizing that it's not from what other people think, it's from me. And like I had to remind myself of those things, even though I've done a lot of that work in the past year. But it was just interesting that this period had me back into some of those old spaces.
All right. We've talked about how this time can impact us generally. And there are plenty of articles out there talking about how this particular Venus retrograde will impact the 12 zodiac signs. And you're encouraged to read those from the perspective of your sun sign, which is your classic astrological sign based on your birthday. For example, LeBron James' birthday, December 30th, he's a Capricorn. There's also a school of thought that whenever you see those horoscopes, you should also read your rising sign. While your sun sign is your essence, your rising sign is how you show up in the world to other people and can better capture the complexities of your life.
But before we get into how this Venus retrograde will affect us specifically, I did want to say something about retrogrades in general. I know we kicked off with like retrograde means everything goes backwards and now it's breakup season, but I want to add a reframe to all retrogrades, for that matter. All retrogrades matter. With Mercury retrogrades, the ones that we're more familiar with, you know, you could be like, oh shit, all my technology is going to break. I'm going to sign a terrible contract. There's going to be miscommunications. Everything's just going to get bad. And you may get all superstitious about everything. Been there, done that. Or you could just approach it with care and make the active choice to slow down and be super thoughtful. So that's the approach that we want to take with Venus retrograde as well. Things could get a little screwy with love and money, but let's just slow down and be super thoughtful.
And with that, we thought it would be interesting to talk about this Venus retrograde from the perspective of your natal Venus sign, which is where Venus was in the sky when you were born. If you don't know what your Venus sign is, pause the episode for a second, go to the show notes. There's a link to a site that will basically spit out your Venus sign. And you may even be able to get away with not knowing your birth time if you don't have it. Your Venus sign can tell you a lot about what you find aesthetically pleasing, what you look for in a potential partner, and what you're like in a relationship. So with our new perspective on retrograde, let's go through each of the Venus signs and see what you need to revisit and evaluate for yourself when it comes to love and money. All right. Up first, Aries. If your Venus sign is in Aries, you love love and you love the thrill of it. And while you may have some fiery starts to your romance, sustaining that love can be challenging. During this retrograde, you may want to be a little more thoughtful of any patterns you're seeing, especially when you just jump in and dive head first, have that quick explosion of love and sometimes lust.
I was going to say attraction.
Okay, that works. just pay attention to, the type of person that you're drawn to initially, and just see what kind of lessons you can gain from that. If you're in a relationship, see where you can add some more heat. Moving on to Taurus, my favorite Venus sign. If your Venus sign is in Taurus, you like nice gifts and you're all about ambiance and beauty in your surroundings. You're also a romantic. During Venus retrograde, slow down and see where you can add a little more romance to your life, even if that's in the form of self-love. Take yourself out on a solo lunch date and go to a museum. Reconnect with the beauty that's around you. So as a person with a Venus sign in Taurus, I got to say, I do love ambiance, vibes, the sexy mood. Like for me, when we're like trying to pick a date night restaurant, I'm always like, what it look like? What's the vibe? How does it feel? I don't really care as much about the food because I can pretty much find something to eat on pretty much any menu. I'm like, I'll be all right. But like, I want it to look good.
I'm like, where we about to eat at?
Venus in Taurus, we also known for, how can I say this? We have a high motor.
A high motor.
You know what I'm saying? Like to be revved up. What you think about that?
Yeah, that's accurate. I don't want to be telling everybody my business.
That's fair. We can move on. So on to Gemini. If your Venus sign is in Gemini, you are attracted to intelligence and people that make you feel excited. During this period, find opportunities to stimulate your mind. Find a new book to read. If you're feeling in a rut with your partner, find something nerdy to explore together. Venus signs in Cancer. You're sensitive but committed. You may not be a big risk taker financially, which is good because Venus retrograde is not the time to go big in Vegas. You may also be feeling a little bit moody. During this time, make sure you're communicating your emotions. Don't go into your shell. You want to make sure you're letting your partner know what's going on. And, journal things out for yourself. You may even feel like doing some cleaning around the house. So get rid of anything that just doesn't bring you joy. Get your Marie Kondo on. Moving on to Leo. So if your Venus sign is in Leo, you're passionate, romantic, and you like luxury. So similar advice to what we said about the Taurus folks, find more romance in your life. Where you differ, though, from Venus and Taurus is that Taurus is automatically a little frugal and Leo is go big or go home. They like to do a lot of spending. So slow down on the spending in this time and get creative with ways you can go big without going broke.
Going homeless. Go big or go home.
Man. If your Venus sign is in Virgo, you're very picky when it comes to relationships. If you're single, you may have some folks pushing you to settle, but don't compromise on your expectations. If you haven't already, this might be a good time to really spend some time thinking and writing out what your ideal partner would be like. And spend some time visualizing and meditating how that person makes you feel. If you're in a relationship, just take stock of if you're being too demanding of your partner and where you can be more supportive. You may also find areas where you're not fully expressing your needs.
If your Venus sign is in Libra, you're another sign that loves luxury and you naturally know how to partner with others. So you might tend to find yourself in a relationship very easily. But during Venus retrograde, pay attention to your love of love and make sure that you're not finding yourself in situations that are just about being able to say you're in a relationship, but that you're really wanting to be committed to the other person. If you're single or about to become committed to someone, make sure you're being thoughtful during this time. Don't rush. If your Venus sign is in Scorpio, you could be full of depth but mysterious when it comes to love, and you'll figure out all of your lover's intimate secrets, but will hold back until they get to know you well enough. During Venus retrograde, don't jump to conclusions with your partner, especially if you're feeling a little possessive or jealous. Those with Venus and Scorpio don't like insecurity in their finances. So that's great because that'll sustain you through Venus retrograde when things could get a little messy. If your Venus sign is in Sagittarius, you have some commonalities with your other fire signs, Aries and Leo. You're a free spirit and spontaneous like Aries, and you're adventurous and potentially careless with money like Leo. So Similar rules apply here during Venus retrograde. Try and be a little bit more thoughtful about how you're engaging with others, how you're spending. This placement can also have an inclination to be non-monogamous. And we're very sex positive on Chakras and Shotguns. So this may be a period where, you just want to think about it. Just consider it. Don't leap. Just think about it. Read some books. Get on Reddit. I don't know.
Read some literature on the subject. You feel me?
Exactly. If your Venus sign is in Capricorn, now I ain't saying you a gold digger, but you ain't, my Venus is in Capricorn, so I get it. You want a stable, hardworking partner. Someone that's ambitious, that wants the same things out of life, or even better, wants more out of life. You're also in it for the long haul and you want to work hard on your relationship. And then if your partner's Venus is in Taurus and they have a high motor, you are working hard in the relationship. But that's okay. It's not hard work at all. During this period, if you're single and looking, see where you may be looking out of alignment with your birth chart. What's a better way to say this? If you're familiar with sprinkle, you don't want no dusties, okay? You want to make sure that, y'all are on the same page. You want to travel, and this person likes to stay at home. That might not be a good look for you. If you're in a relationship, maybe evaluate where you've gotten off track and the ambitions that you and your partner used to have. Oh, we said we were going to do this and we were going to do that. We were going to go to paint and sip. And now we don't go no more. So see where you may want to put more work into your relationship. This is one of those things that I feel like it kind of called me out because I always was like, why do people get in these relationships and they don't want the same things out of life? And just because that's the way that I think. That's how my energy works. Mm-hmm. And finally, if your Venus sign is in Aquarius, freedom and independence are big to you in a relationship. So during Venus retrograde, it's a good time to assess your relationship in areas that you can invite more time to pursue your own interests while still honoring the relationship. If you're single, ask more questions of potential partners. They may tip you off that they're possessive or jealous or stage 5 clinger, I don't know, which would be a turnoff for you. If you've been saving up for a big purchase, which is something common for people with Venus in Aquarius, definitely do your research before pulling the trigger during this time. Read the consumer reports, the reviews.
I wonder where my dad's Venus sign is because that sounds like him.
We can look it up.
All right, guys. We gave you the rundown, Venus signs. We talked all about retrograde. If that wasn't enough, though, I mentioned it a little earlier. Retrogrades have shadow periods. These are the periods before the retrograde starts. It basically is the point where it appears that the planet is slowing down before it starts to go backwards. And then after the retrograde is over, the planet looks like it's speeding up again to go forwards. So during those little slowing down / speeding up periods, the shadow periods, we may feel echoes of the themes of the actual retrograde still lingering. Add in there that Mercury retrograde starts August 23rd. We could be feeling the effects of some combination of Venus and Mercury retrograde through October 7th.
Yeah, so what does this look like? You're reevaluating what you want out of life and your relationship and love. And then you and your partner have some miscommunications. Bim, bam, boom. You're looking for a new place to stay. So slow down, baby. In love, money, communication, technology. Don't go writing a text talking about, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of seeing his fucking dirty socks on the floor. And then you send that text to your boo, slow down. Why don't you communicate? Hey, it'd be really helpful for me if you picked up your dirty socks and put them in the hamper.
Is that you subbing me right now?
No. I would never do that. I would talk about the dishes instead. But just take your time. Take your time. If you want to know more about Mercury retrograde, check out episode 45. So yeah, that's all we got.
All right, before we go, we just want to remind you to sign up again for our newsletter if you have not already. We share a ton of great tips. Don't want to miss out, so visit chakrasandshotguns.com to sign up, or you can use the link that is in the show description.
And finally, if you're loving the show, despite my raspy voice today, please subscribe and give us 5 stars wherever you listen.
Namaste.